Okay, welcome. Thank you all for being here, despite the weather. My name is Alison Moss. So I'm a journalist and editor at Le Quotidien de l'Art, which maybe some of you have seen printed on the fair these past days. And I'll be moderating today's talk. And as you all know, the talk is titled The Rise of New Artistic Mediums. So before we get started, I think it's important for us to take a very quick moment to perhaps stop on the word medium itself. When we think of medium in analog art, it instantly sparks very clear categories in our mind. We think of painting, we think of sculpture, we think of drawing. Whereas in new media art, it is true that this is a little more hazy in our minds, and perhaps that is due to the ever-expanding notion of new media art itself, which has increasingly encapsulated very different types of media throughout the years with the evolution and rise of new technologies. And that is precisely why we're here today with our fellow panelists who are going to give us some insight on their different approaches to media. And the point I really wanted to stop on and to open up the conversation is that since recently there has been a lot of talk on blockchain being a new medium, a lot of it has been focused on blockchain as a medium of production, of sale, rather than of production. And what we'd like to approach here is rather the latter, blockchain as a medium of production, and see in what ways we can separate blockchain as a medium of sale and of production, and how both can sometimes feed into each other. So with me, I have my panel of artists here. They're going to give us a variety of approaches to how they work, whether it's with crypto poetry or sculpture or music, and show us all the vast possibilities that blockchain has brought to them creatively. So without further ado, first of all, I'd like to thank Tezos and Paris Plus for having us today. And I'm going to introduce my fellow panelists. So, on my right, I have Agoria, who's an electronic record producer, composer, and DJ, and works with generative art. I have Kaylin Iwamoto, who is a conceptual crypto writer and artist, and she's the founder of the Crypto Writers Group and co-founder of NFT poetry gallery, The Verse. I have Michel, who is a curator and member of the creative studio U2PO50, which produces philosophy and art and questions our contemporary world, and uses experimental technologies in its work like AI or generative art or text. And last but not least, I have Hermine Bourdin. And Hermine is a physical sculptress who works and explores by giving a second life to her work through new technology, physical sculpture, by giving a second life to her work through new technologies. So without further ado, I'd like to open up the conversation with a broad question, which would be, how do you find new technologies influence the way you work as artists? Does anybody want to get started?
I mean, I can start, but it's not very elegant, I guess. I'm happy to say the first words. I do music, electronic music, since maybe 25 years, so I guess I embraced technology for my medium long time ago. And it has always, I think the question is all about the tool as an artist. That's the question which is behind, I guess, is which tool we decide to use, to cherish, and is technology could be an artistic tool, which I think is a very good question, because you know, like I have some scenes, for example, that I'm like keeping really cherishly on my side, like after 25 years, and others that I sold and I was like not very interested by them, maybe after all the tracks I did with them. So this tool is very something that is not really, let's say, technically quantifiable. And speaking about all what we are doing here, like experimenting with codes, with blockchain, with live minting, and all these different approach, is something that is difficult to anticipate? Is it something that we're gonna really cherish, or is it something that is just a tool, like technological tool, that to help us to deliver a message? And I think I will let my colleagues speak now, but I like this question because I think all what is about this new artistic medium actually it's not really questioning the technology, it's questioning the philosophy we have behind. And it's more about what is the artist, what's gonna be the artist, and where we're gonna go.
Yes, about what it means for an artist or how it positions yourself as an artist. Do any of you have something to add about that?
Hello everyone, thanks for inviting me and the studio. I think you're having a good point there, saying that what is the philosophy that those new technologies can bring, and investigating on these new philosophies that are emerging from this new technology, and then find the appropriate medium, whether it be AI or code, that fits your desire to reflect on these new philosophies. So if, for example, if I want to do sci-fi work, maybe I work with AI. If I want to do something about the feedback loop between what the social media are producing and what we're thinking, I will do generative work. And that is how, I see, bouncing on your point, to use medium to interrogate the philosophies that are new because of technologies.
I really like, I think you did a really good job of introducing this notion of medium, and I think it's really important. It's a very important distinction that you made about the medium of distribution and sales and the medium of actual creation. And I think what we're seeing in NFTs is, you're right, there's a lot of NFTs as a means of distribution, and I think it's very important. For example, in our gallery at the Verse, that's one of our main missions, is to change this trope around the starving poet. So, you know, like in the traditional publishing world, poets don't make any money. You know, if you're a poet, you need a second job. And we're trying to change that discourse by helping poets actually make money through their poetry. So I think as a means of distribution, NFTs are extremely important. But you also pointed out NFTs as a medium of production, of creation, and I think that's also extremely interesting from an artistic point of view. And personally, as a conceptual crypto writer, that's something that I really focus on, using the affordances of the technology, of the blockchain technology, to create an experience of literature that couldn't have existed before. So for me, it's something that's very distinct from, you know, a piece of literature that could have been written on a printed page. So the experience for me needs to be different. So whether it be the use of the crypto culture, which we're seeing like a flourishing of a very specific culture, whether it's interrogating that, or questions that arise around this technology, asking questions around how does this change the way we confront or interact or engage with text. How do we read? What does it mean to be a writer? So going back to the question of who is an artist? So for me, the question is, who is an artist? Who is a writer? What does it mean to write with this technology? What does it mean to read? The experience of reading can be very different when you use this technology in a meaningful way, I think.
And in your case, Hermine, I think it's also NFT-based art also interrogates the way you work with traditional media, in your case, sculpture. And you were speaking to me before just now about it giving you a more interdisciplinary approach to your work. How has that worked for you concretely?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. The fact that I'm doing physical work to start with new medium that enables me, en fait, to use it as like a magic wand and to give a second life to my physical work in a more digital way, which enables me to defy the physical universe law and gravity, and I can play then with my work. And it's really liberating as a sculptress, because I have to work with gravity every day, because my sculpture, they need to be stable, they need to be, I can put them somewhere. And with digital, it's a new medium, and I could do it before, NFTs. But now the difference, I could do 3D before. But what is new now is that you have a way to be collected, which wasn't the case before, So it's very interesting, because it's a new artistic movement, because it's possible to have this work collected and to have collector, and it's very interesting because you can use this medium and work with it as well. So yeah, and also what I like about the blockchain is that there's this notion that it is eternal, kind of. Your work is inscripted. Sorry, my English, but it's really written, and it cannot be changed. So it was minted that day, and I like to think with that also.
And I think something that, sorry, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I would just like to be a bit cautious about the fact that it's going to be eternal. It's true that the transaction related to your work will stay forever on the blockchain node. But if this node happens to stop, if it's linked to a platform, or if we switch to another blockchain, we don't know yet. Looking at all the previous new technologies that are now obsolete, we have to be careful with the thought that it might not be eternal, but people like Tezos are working
exactly.
to do that.
Yes.
And there is one thing that everybody, I think, forgot also, is like internet is not granted. This is something that everybody think it's forever, and we will have access everywhere, anytime. But I would be very cautious about this. Most of all, is internet is not totally granted, and it can be stopped quite easily, and the access can be a bit difficult. And just one thing, because I don't know if because we're here on a boat, I don't know if you see that in the streaming, but there are some waves coming when we speak about movements, and I think it's quite. Tezos did a very good job here.
Very true. I just wanted to bring up one point that had come up a lot during our previous discussions, which was the question of the ego of the artist, because I think it is important also with all we're speaking about the eternity of a work, etc. And we spoke a lot about the ego of the artist being questioned in new media art in general and through the blockchain. Do any of you have any of you found this to be the case specifically when you work?
I love that it questioned the ego of the artist, actually, especially with AI. I just, if you go to my website, agoria.dev, I did a player where you can play my song, and every time you're going to play this song, it's going to be a new version that I don't know myself. So maybe you will have a version with no voice, maybe we'll have a version with no chords, no drums, and I have no clue. And it's very addictive, actually, and it's perpetual version. So every time you play, you press play, you have a new version. And as an artist where, of course, you spend a lot of hours in the studio, and you think, okay, I'm done. This is the best version. It's the best thing I did. Now I know it's not true at all, because I've been also confronted to this, AI can propose things to our imaginary that make us think and double think and rethink about how we do things. So AI, I think, is actually depends how. It's like all the technological tools. Of course, you can use it with presets. You can use it with a database that has been not built by you, and then you will do something that will be similar to all other stuff that has been released so far. Or you can use this tool to retrigger it and to make your own path and your own vision, which make it very interesting. But the place of the ego in the artist here is we used to say, okay, this is my artistical vision, and this is where I want to go. But every morning I get up, I check my latent space, and I see many iterations. Of course, I try to go in this direction, but I'm also, oh wow, what a nice accident, or what a nice proposal. And it's actually a cycle loop, and the artist is not anymore the center point, and I really like this.
Yeah, there's also the idea of a network of different ideas and participants coming into play into one work, which I think we can find in some of all of you's work. So has this also participated in kind of abolishing this notion of ego and the art of the artists for some of you? The collaborations with other specialists, whether it's not specifically in the art field, but very different fields?
Go, Kevin.
I think in terms of, I think I can speak to this from my perspective as a gallerist and as an artist. And I think in the gallery at the Verse, we see there's a lot of collaboration. So we ask poets to collaborate with critical artists. And the work of art that comes out at the end is almost a new experience of poetry. So it's not just a poem on a page, but it can be a video, it's a visual, and they're mutually enhancing and reinforcing, and it's a completely different, like a digital poetry feels like a completely different medium in itself. And in my work personally, I think as a conceptual writer, I mean, people often don't know what that means. Everyone's very familiar with conceptual art, but conceptual writing is, to me, it's similar to conceptual art in that it is the concept that is first and foremost the most important. And it is not personal. Like, the writing is not personal. It's not, how do I feel, what do I think? It's more about the processes of writing that give way to a certain text. So it can be about remixing someone else's text, or it could be about using a certain procedure to create a new text. But that's not really about, my deepest, darkest thoughts or emotions. So it's a completely different notion of writing itself. So in that sense, there's less traditional notions of ego in the writerly sense. Although I do have to say that I'm kind of a stickler for the concept. Like, I do have try to have a strong hold on the concept. So that's maybe, I don't know if that would be ego, but maybe less ego, but more like conceptual importance. And I know that Michel works with AI, and I think in writing as well, there's a lot of, it's a growing field, AI collaborative writing, and it's a big part of the gallery as well. We have a whole series called Gentext, where we invite poets to work with AI and to create new works. So traditional poets working with AI and introducing them to new tools and seeing what that can do to their writing, which is extremely interesting, the output that comes out. So yeah, I think there's a burgeoning, very flourishing field in writing as well that kind of where the writer takes the step back and works with, whether it's AI or with artists or with concepts or procedures. So yeah, I think that's also happening in the literary field on the blockchain.
I think you probably have a lot to say about this as well.
Yeah, because I think that AI in a way is a logical, playing with AI is a logical consequence of the dilution of the ego, because you're playing with all the memories that we've been producing with art or with text. So you're playing with 10,000 egos if you're generating music or if you're generating text. So mechanically, the ego is gonna get less important, I would say. And it's actually now impossible to credit an AI. If you generate an image with AI, you cannot legitimately say it's yours. To me, it's one sign of the dilution of ego by playing with technologies. And of course, blockchain, producing your work, you remain anonymous. So there are different distinctive signs that are pushing this lowering of ego. And I think it's really with this relationship of producing with machines, with these subjectivities that are different to the human ones, that from this new dialogue of subjectivities between human and machines, the ego gets less important. But in our practice here, but the ego figure of the character of the artist remains still in the market. You still need figures.
Yeah, I don't know for myself about ego, but what I can say is that it opens a lot the collaboration between different mediums of arts or sense, as for Agoria, or different, or you, Kalen, and AI, everything. Me, I was collaborating with dance, so mixing dance and sculpture, and so of course it's a new dialogue, and it's very humbling and very different, because this is something I couldn't do in physical sculpture. And with the new technology, you can really combine different fields of art. In my case, sculpture and dance, for instance, by having a dancer from the Paris Opera wearing a suit, a Vicon suit with motion tracking device, and then you retranscribe the dance on a sculpture that you 3D scan, and then you rigged it, and that really becomes like a character, and you can play with. So it's this is something also I love about new technology, and after inscribing it in the blockchain, because it's a new way of creating for myself, at least.
And I just want to add one quick word about. I think so far we are at the top of the ego pyramid in the world. I think we can't be higher than this, in my opinion. It's like everything has been done that to say to everyone, your ego is fantastic, you're the best, you need to show how good you are, you're amazing. And this is why I love so much all this new medium, what's happening with Web3, and with all the bad habits everyone took with social media, especially in social networks, which has, in my opinion, ruined totally the goodwill and so many things in the world. Like, I think this collaborative approach, because we are speaking about collaboration here, no matter if it's AI, artist, or I think this is the thing which makes me the most excited about.
No, absolutely, and that's another question that I actually wanted to bring up, because in analog art there is this very neat, sometimes not in all works, of course, but generally there is a more neat separation between the artist and the viewer, and there is kind of that gap between both of them. And it seems also that with Web3 and the deconstruction of these kinds of relations, we can build, an artist can build new relationships as well to its audience or collectors or etc. And I was wondering if you found that to be the case for you specifically as well, or if you have any concrete examples that you can give us that have materialized this kind of new relationship in some shape or form.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question, and I think it's what's happening is really fascinating, actually. With this new technology, I see a lot of artworks, not just a lot of artworks that change the relationship between the artist and the collector. And it's not just the fact that we're cutting out the middleman and where the collectors and artists are interacting more closely, but also changes the art, and also the artists are also collectors. So I'm a collector myself, and I know that a lot of artists are collectors today. Well, at least on blockchain, especially on Tezos. Tezos is like a flourishing place for artists to collect, and this is I collect mostly on Tezos, actually. But to give a specific example, in terms of an artwork that has an interesting relationship between, like, the artist, changes the relationship between artist and collector. I minted a crypto poem called 12. In which I opened a wallet and I took the 12 words from the seed phrase and I created a poem based on those 12 words. And I asked 12 of my crypto writer friends to put an NFT of theirs inside this wallet. And I minted this poem, the 12 poem, and in the unlockable contents, I wrote clues to find these 12 words in the poem. And so the collector of the poem could, it was kind of like a scavenger hunt. So you collected the poem and you solved the seed phrase, and if you open the wallet, you can take all of the NFTs inside. So there was like a relationship of, like, there was a game, and there was an interesting relationship between the artist and all of the collectors. Obviously, there was a lot of interaction, but also what happened between the collectors as well was really, really interesting and fascinating to see, and it was completely unexpected. And what happened was the first collector who cracked the code, who cracked the seed phrase and opened the wallet, he really enjoyed the experience. He had so much fun, and he said he only took 12 of the NFTs, and he left the other 6 in the wallet because he said he wanted other people to experience the joy of opening this wallet and discovering all these, and being able to take some of these NFTs. And I thought that was completely unexpected, and I was like overjoyed to see that. I loved that. And then what happened afterwards is two other collectors kind of joined forces and cracked it together, and then they opened the wallet, and then they shared the NFTs. So that was there was to see like the collaboration and the goodwill between the collectors was really heartwarming for me. So the relationship between the collectors, between the artist and the collectors was really interesting in this piece. I'm actually working on another piece that's a play, an on-chain play, where the collector gets to vote on how the piece ends. So that's another way in which the collector is, in a way, also the writer. And yeah, I think the blockchain kind of lets us play with these technologies in a way and make them influence, explore how the technology can influence the writing and the writing process, and who the reader is, who the writer is, what it means to collect, to read, to write, and to create. Yeah.
It's interesting that the NFT as a medium of distribution shapes a culture of a quest, of gaming, because when you collect NFTs, you're curious to see who collected you, what do they have in their wallet, who are they connected to, and there is kind of a quest every time someone collects you, or when you collect someone, you see that he's connected to this other artist, I'm gonna dig in there. So like what you did, Kellen, is it perfectly fits this culture. And we also have an idea maybe for one of our projects. We made a book with AI, and we want to mint it as an NFT, and every time someone collects it, it will generate a new version, but it also will a new PDF version that will be printed. But every time someone collects, it will either transform one of the pages or burn one of the pages.
So it will change the story. Every time it's collecting, the new story is coming.
Either it's going to be a new page, or it's going to be a page burned, or the page is going to be glitched, and there will be a website where you can track the new versions, like a genealogical tree, and also as a quest to find which version was created and who got it. And I think it's a lot of artists are also trying to put this gaming into place, but in the most funny and smart ways. And this is really like proper to the NFT culture, I think, for the distribution.
It's interesting, and notice how at the beginning of the talk we were talking about trying to focus more on NFTs as a medium of production rather than of sales, but then both of them kind of are intertwined somehow. And that was also what you were mentioning the other day to me, Agoria, with live minting as well. And I found that maybe you could speak a little bit about that to us, because I find that to bridge that gap as well.
I really try to onboard every people I can meet. And I really try to evangelize, let's say, all the people, as many as possible, because I'm playing every weekend in front of big crowds and people who are not aware so much about this. But they are like, so the technology and the new medium help us to push the technology to find solutions, which is something I really like. The idea is you go to a show and you can actually live mint the audio and the video when you're here, easily. So, but there are many questions about the network. We're speaking about the internet, and this is a real question, like how we can make sure that there is no congestion and everyone here can easily, when they are not really aware about how to create a wallet, how to be involved, which blockchain, which currency, and so on. this is the thing that is really interesting to me, is like to make it easier and accessible to most of us. And that's what I'm trying to do as much as possible. I already managed to onboard all my friends, scientists, researchers, philosophers, which I'm really happy about this, because we were speaking about the relationship between artists and collectors, but also I think we need to get the smartest people, and it can be people working with the living, because my passion is to measure the living and the algorithm and to find the immanence in this both world, and to show that actually the coding can be alive and vice versa. So if we manage to get all these people with us, thinking with us, we're going to have a better and better tools and better ideas of things we can do. So yeah, I'm in this mission maybe.
And maybe you, I mean, your perspective is also interesting on this, because in your case, there's this kind of transition between analog art and digital sculpture. And we were speaking just before about this kind of separation that is more prevalent in analog art between the artist and his work and the relationship with the viewer as well. But also we can think this is also changing with, we think of participative works such as Tino Segal's works, for instance, in which the audience is directly solicited and participates in the work. Do you find there to be, in your work, do you find that it's a logical continuation, the transition to the digital realm? And or do you find that it it provides less of a separation between the artists and the viewer? How does that transition operate for you in that sense?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. To me, I think it's a very, how to say, it's a way to have some idea take life in a more interactive way with my work. For example, with augmented reality, you can, for example, I was part of the CADAF exhibition this June in Paris. So it was like a parcours in all Paris with a QR code at different key places in Paris, and you could scan the QR code and have a augmented reality piece of art show up, you know, and it was on the theme of Ukraine, no war in Ukraine, you know, like peace and with Ukraine. And so it was something I would not easily do in physical. Yes, you can bring like you can create a sculpture physical in the street for sure, or make a fresque. But here it was, you know, a way to make it move the piece of art, like the sculpture. You could. I made a sort of Marianne wearing a flag of Ukraine, and it was very powerful for me to show that and to make this work. And without new technology, I could not do it. You see. And also to have a sculpture dance, I call it Dance for Peace, to have it, you know, dance around. It was really fun, and I think it's a different way of using sculpture in an interactive way with the viewer. To answer your question, you know, and so yes, for me it was not natural, I would say, a continuation of my work, but I explore it. I explore this medium because I'm more like in the physical realm. But my partner, who is a geek, put me in that new universe, and now I use it as a new way of exploration as an artist, and I love it, and I want to explore also different. You are speaking about AI and all that, and I really want to explore. So I'm using it as a new, like clay, you know, like if I would use augmented reality, like clay or different. Medium. So many things to do. Like it's endless, the possibilities.
Yeah, to rebound on what you're saying, I think the NFT culture is putting into light a lot of mediums of production that were maybe not valued enough, and it acculturates people to work with new tools such as augmented reality, and all these 3D artists, those graphists who were working with tools but were not getting the financial and the social recognition now are put into the spotlight thanks to NFTs. and the next generation will be more like how to say. They will know more about those tools. They will explore them more, and this is what NFT is bringing: attention to these new technologies. And another debate, the succession rights, so for the works, but it's another topic.
Yeah, and I'm waiting a lot for, the glasses that you can see, like, for example, Paris with augmented filter, like if you want to activate it or not, because you can also, like, for instance, the piece with Ukraine, I put it on an app that shows AR work in front of the Russian embassy. So it was a way also to manifest, my disagreement with what's happening right now in the world over there. And in the future, I guess we might have all like glasses that we can use or not. It's like augmented reality. But then you can also use it to bring messages with your art, in various ways.
To wrap it up, because we only have a couple minutes left, but I really wanted to ask you also about how an artist navigates the art market and the specificities for NFT-based art, in the market. Because although we were trying to establish this separation, as mentioned earlier, it is true that, and this goes for all types of media, there is no clear separation between an artist and the art market, and the art market can obviously condition an artist's work. So how would you say, in your experience, it is to establish relationships with collectors, getting your work out there? How does that pan out for you concretely in new media art? For instance, would you like to take it away? If not, I do have some more questions, because I was specifically interested in, for example, the question of curation, because there is this very, as we were mentioning before, decentralized kind of viewpoint in which the artist has direct control of his work. And for instance, how does that, for example, is that a part of your work? Is that something you think that should enter NFT-based art?
Well, I think in my case, it's a little more complex. It's not because I'm an artist and a writer, so I'm thinking also not just of the art market, but also of the publishing market. And I think what's interesting about NFTs is, it's open to everyone. And personally, my practice, I'm a writer and artist that was born in this space. I've never published before. I wasn't, an artist before, quote unquote, and I literally started minting when I discovered NFTs because I was so excited by the technology that I wanted to do something. And I've always, I've been a long time lover of like literature and obviously art as well, but I've always written kind of in my garret, and it's my medium, I would say. And so I started minting writing. And I think so if there was that, if I had to go through a publisher, I don't know if I ever would have explored, conceptual writing or, and I think it's a little bit different for me. Sorry, I think the question was about the market, wasn't it?
Yes, but it does answer that also, because we were speaking about the question of getting your work out there and how do you do that?
Yeah, I think it's, so you can get your artwork out there. You can mint. Anybody can mint. But I suppose the flip side is that you also have to market your own work. You don't have a gallerist who is responsible for selling your work. So as an artist in the space, you have to do your own marketing. You have to go on Twitter and you have to find the collectors. And so it is a lot of work, and burnout is very real in this space. Yeah.
Because the NFT market is really community-based, compared to the traditional art market that is more like gatekeepers style. You get step by step to a certain level of recognition that will get you in this certain gallery, that will get you in this certain museum. And compared to NFT, that is fully community based, Not fully, but mostly community-based. For just Beeple is the perfect example. He had a lot of followers, and he had not done a single exhibition before selling at Christie's. And thanks to the way he built this community, and how, for example, you building the community with the verse on Twitter, interacting with collectors. That's the main distinction, I would say, between the traditional and the NFT art market. And for example, we don't have a community, a big community, so we're still playing with the traditional market strategies, but for the NFT market.
Yeah, and also the big difference is that when one of your work is resold, you as an artist, you get 10% or like the percentage you decided, and this is a huge difference between traditional art, physical art, because when your work is resold, you get nothing, and you don't even know when it's resold sometimes, So this is huge difference.
In your case, Agoya, do you agree, or do you think that sometimes artists would need an entourage or some kind of curation to their work? Do you think that is beneficial in this space, or do you think that should stay in another realm of?
I don't think there is just one simple answer, because every artist are all different. So any artist, like I have some needs, other will have some other needs. There is no only just, by definition, an artist is complex. So definitely we need some entourage for some, and others will manage by themselves perfectly. It's there is no real road for this. But I just want to say this: most of the time, the community is fantastic, and this is also why I'm so passionate by the Web3. Is like I meet in the real life all the people during my tour or in fairs or today, and I meet a lot of people that are really passionate, and it gives me the passion to continue and to go forward as an artist, because we could also, of course, keep doing art in institutions as we used to. And what I really think is like, and why I'm persuaded of what I'm doing now is I love to question what's real and what's not real. And actually, when we are always showing art like through screens or augmented reality or all the new media that are gonna come, like, what's virtual is totally real. And even if you're, we can compare with book, we can compare with sculpture. Like when you watch a sculpture or when you read a book, you're in front of it, you're with it, but you're not anymore in your body. Same with the cinema, and the same with what we are doing. So I love the second grid of lecture for this. And the relationship we have with collectors, which is like totally virtual in a way, I love to see it totally real in the world. So the connection between these two worlds is shaping, and I think it's for the best.
Well, I think these are great closing words. So maybe we can open it up to the rest of the room. Do any of you have any questions that you would like to ask the artists? By the way, I really encourage you to go and visit their web pages to see their work, because we'd like to project some of their works, but unfortunately it wasn't possible. But I do think that if you're not acquainted with their works, it's worth going and visit. Yes, sorry, I saw a hand raised over there. No. Yes, please go ahead.
As well. Hello, everyone. There's a lot of people say that blockchain is a medium of art, and a lot of discussion between what is crypto art, what is NFT art a thing. I was just curious about what is your sort of definition of using blockchain as a medium, because I guess that's the topic of the panel. So, voilà. Thank you.
Who would like to take that? That's a tough one.
I can start, and maybe you can follow. So, blockchain as a medium of distribution is quite identified, distributing NFTs, images or videos that you produce. And I would say that blockchain as used as a medium specific, is playing with the smart contracts. And I think artists like Primavera de Filippi, who's or Terra Zero, a project where forest becomes a blockchain entity interacting with humans, and giving how to say, like a legal perspective to a tree, because it's integrated in a system where it activates sometimes a smart contract. I think this is blockchain specific. Or Ria Meyers, who hides works in her smart contracts, and there are actually very few of those, and so there is kind of this confusion between crypto art and blockchain specific art. But yeah, for example, your projects are, I would say, medium specific to the blockchain, as you play with the wallet, you play with the smart contracts in your next play you want to build. So maybe you can develop also.
I think we have a quick minute for you to intervene, and then we'll have to continue the conversation informally. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I agree completely with your definition. I think something crypto, blockchain native art is something in which it could not be done outside of this space. So, like playing with smart contracts or using something in this ecosystem as an integral part of the artwork. So it couldn't exist as a book or as a painting or in a different medium, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Unfortunately, we have no more time for questions, but we can continue speaking informally outside. Thank you again for coming here and for being with us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.